Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Ms. Kareema.
Yeah, I think it's worth recording. So whoever who has not been there, we might use this one, the recording,
great.
for the second time.
Okay, thanks.
To benefit them. Yeah,
so we really do see ourselves as partners with you. We know that, especially during the current circumstances with your children learning from home, a lot of this work falls on you. And so we really want to be a part of that with you. And in general, in Montessori, we really believe in developing the whole child. That's the purpose of the program. It's not only about academics, but also about personal growth. And so it's incredibly important that we work together to really try and understand your children as the individuals that they are, to learn from you about what works and what your child's needs are. And then also just to walk through this process together. So I'm really happy that you're here. I also want to thank parents for the feedback that you've been sharing throughout the week. It's been a very busy first week of school. I think teachers are tired. I'm sure parents are tired. I know I'm very tired from being at home with my kids this week. But I've seen a lot of really wonderful learning happening. And as a team, we're going to continuously reflect on what's working, what we can do better, and then adjust our program as we need to. And part of that is getting feedback from you. So please look out for a survey in the family update that will come this weekend. And we will actually just keep the survey there. So you can continuously add your feedback as things go on. We really want to hear from you. Okay, so our session today is focused not on Seesaw. For once, we're not going to talk about Seesaw. Instead, we're just going to think about the Montessori philosophy and give you some practical tips for how to incorporate some of the essential elements of Montessori at the home. So here's our agenda. Oops, it's not switching. Okay. So I'm just going to talk briefly about the Montessori philosophy in general. And then together with Ms. Kareema and Ms. Janice, we're going to go through what we have identified as some of the most essential elements of the Montessori learning environment and how they can be applied at home. And we'll also talk a little bit about positive parenting strategies that you might want to incorporate at home. So I hope not to take too long. I have a tendency I love talking about learning, so you might need to stop me. If you have any questions at any point, please just put them in the chat window and we will monitor that and answer them when it's appropriate, and we'll also save a little bit of time at the end if you have other questions. Okay, so what is Montessori? This is actually a very old learning philosophy that was developed by Dr. Maria Montessori based on years and years of observation. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about some of our central observations about learning, and it really is that. She watched children very, very carefully, how they use their hands, how they pick up learning materials and toys, how they engage with each other, how they engage with adults, and how they do that at different developmental stages. And that is really where our curriculum comes from. This is a quote from Dr. Montessori that really stands out to me. And it's also, it can also be found in the vision statement of our school, this idea of joy, the joy of learning and the joy of living life. Joy, feeling one's own value, being appreciated and loved by others, feeling useful and capable of production are all factors of enormous value for the human soul. And I like to think about this really because it can fit in any context for a child. This is true in the classroom, where children thrive on the feedback that they get from their teachers, the relationships that they build, and it's also incredibly important at home that children are part of a family, which is really a small community, and that they're capable of contributing to the family and family life. So some of Montessori's central observations about learning and children are, first and most importantly, that every single child is a learner. They're learning constantly, and every child is capable of learning. And I think that is incredibly important. And unfortunately, I have seen settings where teachers or even parents may not believe that their child is capable of learning certain things or learning in a certain way. And that's just not true. At DIMS and in the Montessori philosophy in general, we really believe that every child is capable of learning, and that it comes naturally to them. We also believe that children learn through their senses. So they learn best when they're able to touch something or hear something or taste it or smell it. And that is a really key part of the Montessori classroom. And it's something that we're all missing right now with kids at home during home learning. So we're really trying to work as a team on how we can continue to build more and better opportunities for students to learn with their senses while they're at home during phase 1. We also believe that freedom and independence are absolutely essential for learning, and that kids learn naturally when they're given the freedom to learn and to build their own learning experiences. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that one and what this means and how we can apply it at home. We also believe that learning explodes in the best way and the fastest way possible when children feel that it is fun, and when it taps into their natural desire to feel valuable and to feel capable. So these are some things that we try to replicate in the Montessori classroom. In the curriculum, this works in 5 key learning areas, which are practical life, sensorial, math, language, and culture. And most of our learning can fall into these categories. Just a couple more points about Montessori philosophy. We believe that children themselves flourish and learning accelerates when learning happens independently. And so we really place great emphasis on developmentally appropriate independence. At the youngest age, when children are in their preschool learning cycle, really they're working on physical independence. They want to do it themselves. They want to put their own clothes on. They're learning how to put shoes on and use buckles and buttons, how to carry things, how to pour things, how to do things for themselves. And as they get older, they become a little bit more socially independent. That's what they're working towards, and also their emotional independence. We also believe that structure and order and routine facilitate learning, that learning doesn't happen as well in an environment that's not orderly and with clear structures in place. And we also believe that teachers actually don't really exist in Montessori. Teachers are guides. They're there to help children develop that independence and then walk on their own learning path. So we also expect that parents are modeling the behavior that we expect from children. They're understanding children's individual needs, and then they're guiding them on how to choose their next learning task. Okay, so let's think about some of these essential elements and how they can work at home. Okay. When we think about Montessori and the classroom, we frequently talk about the prepared environment. And this is a section in the home learning handbook that we've shared with parents. The classroom is not these books on this shelf randomly and these words and these cards over here and beads over here. It's really carefully curated, both the materials that are available to kids and also where they are located in the classroom and how children access those. So here is something to understand about this prepared environment, and we're going to encourage parents to think of the home as a prepared environment as well. The main goal of the prepared environment is to render the growing child independent of the adult. That's the ultimate aim of the environment, so that the learning is independent, so that the self-care and self-management is independent, and so that they develop independent habits in caring for others as well. Okay, so the 4 key elements that we want to talk about today are this concept of freedom and independence, and Ms. Kareema is going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about structure and order, really in terms of the structure of our spaces at home, and also how we plan time and manage time at home. We're also going to think about the home as a place where social and intellectual growth happens, and talk about how we can build intellectually rich environments at home for children. And we're also going to talk about a peaceful approach. How do we cultivate peace and calm and a sense of care for everyone in the home environment? You can probably hear my kids being loud in the background, so feel free to judge me on the peace one, but we're trying. Okay, Ms. Kareema, do you want to talk a little bit about freedom and independence?
Yeah, hi. So I'm really, really honored to talk about this aspect in Montessori today. Maybe I'll switch on my video. Okay, there we go. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me,
Yes.
Mary, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So freedom and independence, they go hand in hand. We cannot separate them. As long as the freedom is given to the child, that's how much the independence would. So in order to achieve independence, you just freedom like nobody's business. You give freedom with limits, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom to ask for a presentation, freedom to help somebody. There is freedom to do everything, but with limits, not exceeding the limits of freedom. So that helps the child that even freedom has limits and you cannot overdo freedom just like how you want it to happen. And child learns a lot through freedom, how he could take care of himself, how he would take care of the environment, and how he would achieve his goals, of the adult, and being more explorative independently. It's a very vast freedom when we talk about freedom in the Montessori environment. And through time, with time, stage by stage, step by step, the child achieves independence, and it is very evident in a Montessori classroom because we have a child staying in a classroom, spending time for 3 long years, blending with different age communities and new kids coming in and older kids moving out. So that itself has created a community there for them to understand. Even letting go is also a freedom when they have made very good friends of an older age group who had been bonded to them, and when they have to say goodbye when the old age group graduates to the next level, that is also finding freedom within self to let go of their own friends but still hold on to those relationships that they have created. So I'm going to very briefly say how a child achieves freedom. Every activity is created and given to the child with supervision, and also we let the child make mistakes and we don't panic about it and we don't expect perfect right away. Trial and error is a very essential part of learning. Through mistakes, learn better and they become better people. And also, they also understand mistakes are allowed. It's okay to make mistakes. That is one important element in achieving freedom achieving independence through freedom. And making the child at home a very active member, not only in the Montessori classroom. Montessori classroom is just a little world inside the classroom. The whole world is like shrunken inside the classroom with all elements carefully monitored and prepared inside. But when the child goes out of the classroom, he's expanding his understandings and he's experiencing it at a wide range at home and in the social communities around. So at home, very especially at this time, I'm happy to say that the child should be respected to be given a very responsible part to work on his own, not to all the time helped by helpers, because in places like Rwanda, we have helpers and a lot of help. So those love and help is not going to help a child to grow independent. That is only going to shrink his independence and be dependent for longer periods of time, and even sometimes that can part of him, where in areas he will never be independent. Independence is not only physical, it's intellectually as well, spiritually, intellectually, and academically. So making that child a very important person in the house, giving him responsibilities and creating an atmosphere where he could take part in little activities like house, even in the kitchen, even cleaning, cooking, laundry, but making sure that we don't overwhelm him by giving an adult shirt to be folded. The child himself is not prepared or equipped enough to do the buttons. So we go about it. Sorry, did you not get it all, Mary?
I'm following, but your voice is breaking.
Mary, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Did my voice really break a lot?
I think I could follow you.
I'm sorry, it could be the internet connection.
Okay.
It did go out, but it came back again, so you can continue, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Do you want to repeat what I said?
No, I think you can keep going. It's okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. So give responsibilities, but carefully monitored activities, not to overwhelm the child. And then when the child is unable, go negative with the child. Oh, you couldn't do it. Next time you're not going to do this. Very normal consequences that we see in homes. I don't know, not in a home, I would say, but we do see these things happening because everybody underestimates a child, and lots of people underestimate a child and they think they're not capable of achieving.
Ça va sans doute durer jusqu'à 5 heures, j'ai pas envie de te retenir. Les filles, elles ont été...
Okay, I think you can continue.
Hello?
Mute their mic if they're not speaking.
Okay.
Yeah, I've muted it. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So a lot of respect is needed for that child and clear instructions given, and without intruding, let the child make his own errors and learn through it. And even when errors are made, channel them to positivity. Like if a child buttons, like for example, talking about buttoning a shirt, is buttoning like leaving out one button, and like if it doesn't look neat, you always appreciate you did great job, but we are going to try it better next time. Something like that, without taking the shirt, doing it by yourself. Talk about with the child. It's awesome that done, but I'm going to show you just that missed one button in between and a buttonhole, so you just like switched here there, and we are going to try do it again and do it together. Spend that extra time and energy and love and care with that child, and there he builds confidence with you. He will not be scared to make mistakes through them. Also, give the child very purposeful activities, not just to keep him occupied. For example, if you're making dough, give him a little pot in a real little bowl, real ingredients, asking him to wash hands, so you can include that part of dough that he is making all into the pizza and making him feel valued. Purposefulness towards his work, his hard work, heart and soul that was put into that work to be a part of your operation. So it is very important, but don't give utensils that the child can't handle, like a real large bowl, like an spatula or something. So it's nice to give child-sized material if you can have them at home. They are not even so costly if you want to buy them, because these times are really hard and we don't want to spend extra money. But I'm sure these little things can be found in, little stores. It is the child and going to bring a lot of value towards his freedom, independence, and gaining confidence. So I'm going to brief bit I did with freedom and independence. Freedom and independence, they work hand in hand and leads confidence. Confidence has to be a winning tool child. Because confidence alone, people, confident people in this world we see, they use their confidence in a negative way. So we don't want that kind of confidence. So talk about peace, I cover how this confidence is going to be channeled with, peace and joy and happiness, humility. So Mary, I'm going to stop here. When I get my turn to talk about peace, I'm continue with my talk.
Okay, thank you. I just want to point out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kareema. I just want to point out on the slide a resource that we want to share with you. We're trying to share some resources today. So this is a clickable link to chore charts, and it actually has a variety of chore charts and icons that can be used for young kids and a little bit older children if you want to incorporate purposeful contributions to the family at home. We really recommend that this is something that's built into a routine, and I'm going to talk about routines in a minute, so that it becomes second nature, that children are contributing. They really enjoy doing it when it's built into their daily lives. And the earlier you start, the easier it will be to continue with the contributions when they get a little bit older and might be more resistant to that kind of thing. So I will send these slides out later, and feel free to flick through and access some of the resources we're sharing, like this chore chart here. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about structure and order, which are key elements in a Montessori classroom environment. And this really relates to how the child lives in the world around them. So we're really thinking about everything that is around the child, and also that's typically out of their control. So we're thinking of this as the external environment, really both in terms of time and how it's structured, as well as the space. So these are some of the key beliefs that we have about time, and these can be translated into the home environment as well. We believe that routines are very important for children, and what they do is provide some predictability about the day and the week and even the year and the month, so that children know what's going to happen next. That gives them a sense of calm and peacefulness, knowing, okay, first we do this, then we do that, and they know what's coming. They're not sitting and wondering. But we don't believe in rigidity and rigid schedules. So we also think it's important that there's a routine that's predictable, but of course we all have to be responsive to children's needs. And it may be that a child is just not able to sit and even during the home learning time, sit and learn using Seesaw today. It's not working. My kids had trouble in the morning circle this morning, but they did better yesterday. So we have to be flexible and responsive to that, and know when to change course. However, we do believe that this careful structuring of time, planning time, really helps children develop concentration, especially when they're at younger ages, and perseverance. If they know how long something is going to last and they know what's going to happen next, it gives them a little bit of leeway to stick with something. They might have a little bit more resolve because they know it's not going to last forever. Or they know, oh, if I do this task, then this reward is coming later. Not as a bribe, but as a matter of course. We also believe that this helps generally to build awareness of time. And this is not only at the youngest ages, but also as students enter elementary and adolescence. Time is hard, and we all have our own perceptions of time. I know I always think I have more time than I do. And this is something everyone has to discover for him or herself. But talking about time, planning how to use time at home, what is the flow of the day like? When is there going to be a snack? When are we going to sit down and be serious about our learning and our schoolwork? When do we go outside and play? Having all of that built in helps children just to understand themselves and their actions as part of the course of time, and to build time management skills. In terms of the space, you've seen our classrooms at school, and I'm sure you've noticed that, for example, on a certain bookshelf, there are only mathematics materials and beads. And in another corner of the room, you will only find materials that are related to language development. And in another corner of the room, you'll find materials that are related to the French language or to science or to biology. So this is a really essential part of the classroom in Montessori. And we also believe that it can help to provide that structure at home if children know where everything goes. Sorting and categorizing is something that babies do. They start to learn how to categorize different objects and different concepts before they can talk. It comes really naturally to young children, and building that sense of order and knowing, okay, my sports equipment goes here, my shirts go here, my books stay on this shelf. When I come into the house, this is where I put my shoes. All of those things help to build a little bit of structure into children's lives, and they really do help. It really does help them function more freely within that space. I don't have to ask where something goes. I know, okay, I'm cleaning up my blocks. This is where they go. And so that can really help. And as children get older and enter elementary school and begin to take more responsibility for their own spaces, then it's a really good idea to engage kids in deciding where things go and to give them some ownership of their own spaces. So just a few practical tips are that we really encourage parents to create a flexible but predictable daily routine, and we're happy to provide help with that. The teachers or I are happy to Skype with you or Zoom, I guess we're using Zoom with you and talk about the ebb and flow of your family's daily life and think about when it might be best to build in time to look at the activities on Seesaw, time to sit down at a desk or a table and do schoolwork on paper, time to go outside and play, and all of those kinds of things. We're very happy to provide support with that. We also encourage you to post this information somewhere in your home. So using visual cues for the daily routine of the day can really help kids to take ownership of that. And that can be done with images as well as texts, depending on the child and what they'll respond to best. But if you're using images with very young children, they can quickly learn to follow their own routine, even though they're not able to read all of the words in the routine. And even audible cues like setting a timer, so kids know they have a cue for when something is going to stop, and they can check the timer and know how much time is left, can really help with the concentration and perseverance. And also just to give kids warning so they know when something is going to end and it doesn't cause internal disruption if something ends. I think I said this a moment ago, but also asking kids to participate in this, giving them some ownership of it. Should we do snack before morning meeting, or should we have our snack after the morning meeting? Those are decisions where you can be happy with either answer, and then it gives children some ownership of the day. And then we also really think that it's a great idea to have children who are in the upper elementary stage and even in grade 3 and possibly grade 2 to participate in setting goals for the day, setting their own agenda. Then maybe this changes from day to day, but if the kid is reporting to parents, okay, these are my goals for today, this is what I'm going to work on, and then reflecting on it at the end of the day, okay, I accomplished this goal, I didn't quite get there with this, and so I'm going to do it in the morning. That can really help them build that awareness of time and those time management skills. In terms of the space, a few key tips that we have for you are to make children's items available to them. So keeping children's toys that they're allowed to play with up on high shelves means that they need help from an adult to access them, or if they're my children, they will climb on something very high to get to them. So keeping things down low helps them to take ownership of that space. It gives them the opportunity to choose what they want to do, what books they're going to read, or what materials they're going to learn with, what toys they're going to play with. And it gives them some independence and responsibility, because then they can clean up on their own as well. So then they're responsible for putting those materials back. And this can include children's dishware, clothes, books, toys, shoes, anything that they use. If it's within basically at eye level, it helps them to develop some independence with it. We also encourage you, and this is a great way to save money, to rotate through the materials that are available to children at home. So if you have books in your house, don't put every book out on the shelf for them. Put a set of books out and then rotate it every couple of weeks. Don't put every single toy that you own in your house out available to children. Put an array of materials out and then rotate them every once in a while. For young kids in particular, it's like Christmas. It's like a holiday where they're getting presents because they've forgotten about the things that they had before, or they miss them. And then when something comes back into rotation, it's exciting and it's new. So they stay engaged with the materials that are at home. And then this goes back to this contribution to the family, but really we very much encourage you to engage children in the process of organizing their materials. Let them make decisions about where they're putting their books. And then of course of maintaining those spaces. So they are responsible for their own materials, their own clothes, and that type of thing. This is what happens in the Montessori classroom. Children serve food. They wash their dishes after their meals. They clean up after their materials. As part of our COVID response, we are actually incorporating the sanitization of the learning materials into our curriculum so that children are involved in that. And that's something that can easily be replicated at home, and that it's something that other carers or people who help in your household can help your children do without your support. And we also another tip is just to be very mindful about change. If you put in routines, if you do plan the environment and the materials that are available, think carefully and be mindful about when you're changing those, and maybe give your child a warning about it, because once they are settling into that routine, it can be jarring when something suddenly changes unpredictably. So the predictability is important. And just to note the resource here, we've put a link to, it's about 38 pages of large routine cards that are about this size, that have images and text that you could print and use to establish a routine in your house if you are interested. Okay, I'm going to talk very briefly about social and intellectual stimulation. I'm just watching the time here. So this is where we think of the social environment for the child. And in a Montessori classroom, discourse and dialogue happens constantly between the child and the teacher, and also between the children in the classroom. And we encourage parents to think about how you are stimulating a social life within the family, and also encouraging intellectual curiosity. So we think of the home, just like the classroom, as an environment which is conversationally rich, where there is conversation happening with adult vocabulary and with vocabulary that is at a child's level, so that children are seeing parents modeling their own intellectual curiosity, and that they're engaging with each other as social creatures and as academic learners. We believe that in a family, everybody should be modeling that learning behavior and also celebrating each other's achievements. And this is as simple as talking about it, having family discussions, talking about a problem that you had to solve at work today, and explaining to your child the decision that you had to make about it. Or talking about something that you did that you were proud of, and asking them to do the same. So just a couple of practical tips here are to do things like build family reading time into your family's daily, or let's be realistic, maybe your weekly schedule. On a Saturday afternoon, we're having quiet time and everyone in the house is reading something. We're all reading. We also think it's important to create time for family meals when you can. And it may sound silly, but try using conversation starters during those family meals to encourage dialogue and conversation. We're all at home right now. We're spending a lot of time at home, although we can go out a little bit more, but our social lives are very much tied to our homes right now. So let's capitalize on that and make the most of it. And then again, modeling curiosity. So talk about your own interests. What are your hobbies? Why do you love the hobby that you love or the sport that you play in your free time? What are you learning to do? What new skills are you learning to do? And encouraging kids to share about that when they're learning something new. And then another part of this is, of course, healthy screen habits. I love Google. I will Google things forever. I love to learn about things and read as much as I can, but I have to be mindful of what I'm modeling for my children. Am I on my phone all the time? Or are there times when I put my device away and I'm just here and I'm engaged? And that's just a reminder about that. Another idea that we had is to hold a weekly family meeting. And I know Ms. Kareema in a minute might mention this. Some families do this already, but we thought that this was a really great idea for bringing the whole family together outside of a mealtime, an explicit time when everyone comes together at the same time and in the same part of your home every week. And just as an opportunity for every family member to have their voice heard, to be seen by each other and to feel valued. And one idea for this is to really mark the occasion by setting aside a special space that this happens in, and even using a cue like lighting a candle or something like that at the beginning and then blowing it out at the end of the family meeting so that it's really a sacred time. This is when we're coming together and we are engaging with each other as a family. And this is also, of course, very important for language development as well. Studies show that in homes where children are exposed to a lot of high-level vocabulary, their own literacy skills develop at a much faster pace. So just using a few of these tips can even help naturally with your child's language development. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kareema to talk about peace in the home.
Hi, everybody, once again. Yeah, I'm gonna connect with freedom, independence, and confidence, blend it all with peace, because in the Montessori learning, we cannot separate anything, although we have separated the entity to talk about so that we understand it better. So when we have given freedom and we achieve independence, while achieving independence, because all the activities are aligned with sequence and order, like what Mary spoke about now. So all those things are incorporated when I start from freedom, independence, then concentration comes in. And for concentration, there has to be order and structure in the environment. And that's when real confidence arrives in a child. So I wanted to also like remind, in a Montessori classroom, purposeful activities are given, just like how we want home also to give the child purposeful activities. But those purposeful activities has a different external purpose for the adult. Like we cook food to be able to eat a full meal to satisfy our hunger. But in a child's way of satisfaction is completely different, because he is constructing himself from within. His muscles, his nerves, his needs, his emotions, everything is working at 100-mile speed, 1,000-mile speed, I should say. And that's why we need to give them those purposeful activities, although the purpose is completely different. Theirs is very internal and our purpose is very external. So I had to like move back with that to connect you with this. So an adult needs to understand that if an activity is not done completely perfectly well, you have to understand that child is constructing himself stage by stage. The purpose is completely different. We are not looking at the outward perfection, but we are aiming at perfection because that's the way to get to the goal of constructing you completely from within. Yeah, so When a child is confident while doing all these things, when we have like considered all these aspects to come together, the confidence has to be a winning aspect, winning tool for every individual. So we don't want that confidence to be a negative tool to damage somebody. It doesn't work that way. So if we are looking at confidence and I'm confident I can do it, somebody else is feeling sad about not being able to do it, when there is no empathy, that confidence is of no use at all. So that is why Montessori talks so much about peace. Peace is the core element of all your life, all our being. So if whatever we do, if we don't find peace and happiness and joy and giving and, all those beautiful qualities, I don't think any education, any learning is worth doing, all this hard work. So we channel the child with a lot of habits that you can inculcate. We have activities in the classroom, like we do yoga, we do walking on the line, the silence game, waiting for your turn, respecting each and every child, no matter where they come from, what color they are, what language they speak, what culture they practice. We incorporate every single thing, and we respect and we model it, and every single thing, even starting from the hairstyle to the clothes they wear, it could be different from my culture to the other, but we totally appreciate and value it, and we talk about it during circle time. We really raise it up so that every child sees something beautiful in every little thing that is present in that moment. And also, um, when we talk about peace, peace on the grander scale is a broader vision on Montessori towards the world peace. But where does peace begin? Peace really begins at home. So a mom and dad, if peaceful, if they are mutual, if their vibes are connecting, I know everything can't be 100% right. There can be moments, but it's up to us to manage it when there is a child present in the environment. We have to remember that that little child is absorbing, not learning. He is just everything. He doesn't know how to discriminate what is right and wrong. Even if he hears an argument, he absorbs that argument, part of that argument, expressions, the words, the vibes, every single thing, the body language. And even something beautiful is happening, when somebody is doing a charitable action, being kind, that's also completely no discrimination. The child absorbs it. So we have to be really mindful when we are ourselves, modeling ourselves at home as parents, as guardians, siblings, and even the communities that we frequently, incorporate with our families and backgrounds, especially during these COVID times. I have seen families, they have chosen like groups, and just to be safe, and which is also a very nice thing, just to be safe and secure, and also give a little bit of um, social extension towards children's growth. They have chosen these families. So we also have to be like, I think it's nice to communicate with, if you find something negative, it's nice to have a really nice understanding conversation. You can bring Montessori as a topic, and we can always talk about it and all the good things into play. That is going to certainly help the who are spending most of their times at home.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Kareema.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just to point out, another resource on this page is it's an article online about raising your child with values, how to promote your family values at home. And I think for me, when I think, okay, full disclosure, I have 4-year-old twins. So peace at home is not 100% of the time. And I think this is another really essential part of this, is that part of having a peaceful emotional environment at home is having grace for each other and being able to talk about when something hasn't worked or when feelings have been hurt. I know we're all, those of us with multiple, well, really, with any other people in our home, we are managing conflict sometimes. And that doesn't mean that we don't have a peaceful or emotionally healthy environment. It's about how we're expressing that, and also how we reflect on that with our children and talk about what's happened and what we're going to do next. Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm just going to pass it over to Ms. Janice for just a little bit of conversation about positive parenting strategies.
Thank you, Mary. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Janice. Yes, we can hear
Can
you.
everyone hear me? Okay, great. I hope you're still with us. I know it's been a while, so I'm going to run through this as quickly as I can, but I think it's the most important. It's all about Montessori parenting and how we deal with children's behavior. So I'm going to dive right into it. Everything starts from the way we parent, and that's yours as a parent. So we look back, in Montessori, we know that from 0 to 3, children are in the unconscious learning period. So this means that everything that they see around them, they are absorbing like a sponge. So you are their key focus. So they're watching everything you do. And the way you model your life and your behavior can set up the foundations of the attributes that your child will become. Because after 3, then it's conscious learning. So now they're aware of what they're absorbing, and now they get a bit bossy. And this is when it actually, the terrible 2s start, but it's actually 2, 3, and 4. So going back, the way you deal with yourself as a parent, and I'll give a few examples soon after, can result in 2 characteristics of a child. So we have one child who will be normalized, a normalized child. And this is a child who is peaceful, who feels secure, confident, who is engages in an activity, who's focused, and who has good attributes, but not all the time. They're going to have some bad days, but we weigh it out where all the normal days that they have are more than the bad, and then we have a normalized child due to positive parenting. And then the other side of the spectrum is a deviated child. So we don't like to call children naughty or disrupted. In Montessori, we call them deviated, meaning they've slightly gone off the road of being normalized due to many factors. And again, also going back to how we parented. So the deviated child will have trouble concentrating, will be impulsive, showing those attributes. And not all the time, again, they will have days when everything is perfect, but they have more deviated days. So we say that the child has deviated from the normal path. So that being said, you have to be very careful as a parent, and I'll share my own experiences too, in the way you do everything from the moment you are with your children, from when they're born as they grow. And I mean in terms of respecting the people around you, showing love, showing compassion, keeping your surroundings in order, the way you deal with circumstances and situations, all those things have to be presented in a positive light. And it is really difficult, so it won't happen all the time, but most of the time, just be aware of your actions. And for example, waking up in the morning and greeting all the staff in your home, where it be the cleaner, the gardening staff. So your children will see that, and then they will build the respect, and everything else in a positive manner will follow. And then we'll get the normalized child. And I'll give you an example of my own experience, where we get a deviated child. And this by no chance is bad, as linked to bad parenting. We like to call it misguided love. So parenting is really tricky. You want to give the best to your children, and there's no right or wrong handbook, but we learn from experience. And so when a child is deviated, you know, for one example, I would say this child is very dependent on you. This child is not independent. They're always asking for help. That's because, and I'll give you my personal example, I have a teen son, and I did give misguided love in the beginning. I thought I had to do everything for him. So I did everything for him. I prepared his meals, I prepared his clothing. And as the years went on, I realized how I was doing him a disservice because I stripped him from his independence. I took away the challenges. I put obstacles and boulders in his path of normalization, and he became dependent on me. So then I had to reroute my parenting strategies, and we had to, turn everything around. And slowly but surely we're making progress, but it's much harder when you start later on in life, as opposed to in the beginning, where we encourage you as a parent. And I know it's difficult, but you have to sit back and let your child explore and let your child try and let your child, make the mistakes, because that's how they grow. So just being aware of how you parent, how you love, and it's not being mean. You are giving them the tools, and you're actually making them a better person later on in life. So I'm just going to quickly touch on behavioral issues. There's a whole spectrum, but I'm going to just talk about the extremes. So I'm going to talk about tantrums and outbursts. So let's start with that one. I know that's one of my questions I always ask as a parent as well. So, children don't know how to express their feelings, and there's so many factors that come into play. So a hypothetical example, you have to do groceries in the store. You have to go get groceries, and little Jimmy or Sarah hasn't had their snack and they're tired. You're in T2000 or Simba, and all hell breaks loose. You have a tantrum going on in the middle of the store, and you have kicking and screaming. So at that moment, you have to center yourself. It's really important. I know myself as well. You feel like, oh, I can't deal, and you want to react instantly, but you have to think for a moment and calm yourself, because remember, the children feed off your energy. So calm yourself and go down to your child's level and speak to them. So when you're doing this, it's immediately about positive reinforcement. So I know we're quick to say, no, don't do that and stop it, but that makes it worse. So we want to divert the situation, and we want to bring positivity to it. So for example, if they're kicking you, you can say, oh my goodness, you have a strong kick, but I think that's supposed to be for, the gym. Maybe we could go and do a kickboxing session, and then acknowledge as well, like explain to the child, I know you're feeling upset. I know X, Y, and Z happened to you. And then also give instructions of what can happen, and give them a choice as well, like divert the attention and ask them, would you like to come and help me find this? Or could you help me do that? Give them a choice so that they feel that they're in control as well. This is not going to work and change and reform your child overnight, but consistency is the key. So the main thing you have to do is acknowledge their feelings, go down to their level, and reaffirm the positive behavior, and remind them of the good things that they did in another situation that you liked about them, and then give them an optional choice which you are comfortable with the outcome. And then the other spectrum is when we have a child who's going to close down and shut down, and they're going to go up into their room, and they're not going to want to speak to anybody, and they're really upset and sad. So that's really difficult. We need to approach it with a lot of compassion and thought. The main thing is you have to give your child space. And once you do that, at another opportunity, have a sit down with them and communicate with them. And when you communicate, it's important to listen, to acknowledge and understand their feelings. And then, like Ms. Kareema and Ms. Mary had mentioned as well, a good way would be that family get together where you would have a center, a place, and you would light a candle and speak about your feelings. So eventually the child who closes down and doesn't speak about their emotions, when they see the trend, they will begin to feel comfortable. And then in those sessions, it will be an eye opener, and they would be able to share things with you that you wouldn't have known otherwise. So dealing with that is very important, but the main thing is also communicate with your children. We underestimate our children a lot. To avoid even dealing with these extreme situations, let's set expectations. So it's important that everything that you do, you have to speak to your child and set up the expectations. For example, we are going out, you're going to sit comfortably in your car seat, you're going to be strapped. Or if you're at the dinner table with your teens, you can be like, when we get to the dinner table, no phones, we're going to have a dinner, this is what's expected. And then after that, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then you can remind them of that as you go throughout the day with the younger ones who tend to forget, but keep reminding them that this is what's going to happen. And then once they have completed the task successfully, a reward is always welcomed, and always like positive praise, just lots of positive praise. And then I think one thing that I want you to take away from this is that discipline is a very, very sensitive subject. I know the old tradition, and when you hear the word discipline, you think, oh, shouting, I have to shout, I have to yell. But no, you know, the definition of discipline is giving a set of instructions for a desired outcome. So it doesn't always have to be yelling and screaming or threats. You know, it's just sitting down and explaining the situation. And after the incident has happened as well, like sitting down and communicating about the positive and the negatives and what didn't work well, what you weren't happy with, and then warranting an apology, and then, you know, thinking about how you can make the situation better next time. And the last thing that I'd also encourage the parents is talk to your children about your experiences. A lot of the times we like to appear perfect to our children, and that's fine, but it's not truthful. And then our children feel like they have this high expectation to live up to. So a small example will be, if something went wrong at work, or you made a mistake or something, speak to your children about it, especially the older ones, and, you know, tell them how you dealt with the situation, how you felt, and then they can relate, and they will feel comfortable coming back to you and communicating the same problems, and you can sit down and figure out the solutions together. There's so much more to talk about, but I know we're running over time and I don't want to keep you all. But thank you, and thank you to Ms. Kareema and Ms. Mary too. I think I'm going to hand it back over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Ms. Janice. That was very insightful.
Thanks so much. That was wonderful. Yeah, so I want to let everybody go. I'm mindful that we're just going over an hour now, but I hope that you are able to take home a few useful tips. And a revolution in parenting is also not a great idea. So we're sharing some possible strategies with you and practical ideas, but of course we wouldn't expect that you would suddenly change everything about your home life and your style. But I hope that you'll be able to leave with one or two ideas that you can try at home and with your relationships with family members at home, just to help cultivate your family culture. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them. And if you want to leave and you need to go cook dinner and do your family routine, that's fine too. Oh, I wanted to just mention, my father is here. I asked him to join Seesaw as a family member, so he saw my post about this, and I just wanted to say hi to my dad. Maybe he's thinking about his own parenting styles, and he's probably recognizing that I'm not a perfect parent because he has seen me parent too. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Mark. Okay, thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. That was really nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks, everyone.
Have a really good evening,
Have a
and
good
I
night.
hope this helps.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is helping a lot.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Most
Bye.
welcome. It's our pleasure. Even if you have any questions, I think you can post it to us in whatever email or Seesaw, whatever mode that works for you. We are happy to answer your questions, right, Mary?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you,
absolutely.
Kareema.
Yeah, we're always here for conversation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.